Thank you, Katie, for joining me today. And Katie is Katie Peterson from Kehoe Law LLC. And she is an attorney and mediator. And I am so pleased to have you here, Katie. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm just going to dive right in and ask a couple questions of you. So, number one, can you please give us a little background knowledge about you and your practice? For example, with so many areas of law you could have chosen, why did you choose family law and how long you've been practicing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to law school when I was 23 to 25 years old. And at the time when I graduated, it was 2008, and there weren't a lot of jobs to be had at that time. The economy had just crashed. But I knew enough at that point. I didn't want to do like corporate law, or I didn't want to work with, kind of faceless clients. I really, wanted to help people on some level. And so the job that I took coming out of law school was with a nonprofit legal services firm in Seattle, Washington. And we worked with people who were experiencing homelessness in Seattle. We provided legal clinics. We had free legal help, worked with clients, resolve some of their legal issues so that they could kind of remove those barriers. And what was interesting about that kind of work is it had a lot to do with family law. There was a lot of child support issues, child custody, restraining orders, a lot of stuff that just impacted the family, at a very immediate level. And so that's kind of where I started to get my experience doing family law. And I found that I really enjoyed it. I liked working with people directly. I started getting court experience and understanding all of the procedures of the going to court. And the results were fairly immediate for a lot of people. You could really, it's a complex, confusing area of law. And sometimes just having somebody who understands what to do, step in and be able to help somebody kind of untangle some of the mess that can come with family law was really, it was really rewarding. So when I went out on my own, I moved from Seattle down to Vancouver, Washington, and opened up my own practice. I knew that family law was an area that I wanted to continue working in, and I stuck with it. I've been doing it for almost 15 years now. Yeah.
That is amazing. Wow, 15 years. I am sure you have seen some really interesting cases come through.
Yes.
So I know that each divorce is totally unique, and everyone that is involved really goes on their own unique journey through this whole process. So if you could change anything or give any heads up advice to someone just starting down this path, what might it be?
I think that, everybody has a different situation, and divorce can mean different things to different people in terms of where they're at in the process. But I think the main thing that people try to do is they try to rush the process. They want to know the fastest way to get divorced. They want to know, how long is this going to take? It's moving too slowly. And completely understandable. Some people, they're in situations where they need to get out of quickly, but for most people, they're not really in that situation. The rush might come from just being in an emotionally trying, unsure time in their life and just wanting that period to be over with. And I totally get that. But I think what I want people to know is, this is a complex area of law, and they don't really talk about what happens, when you're getting married. Nobody's talking about, okay, you're entering into a contract, what's it going to look like to kind of get out of this contract. And so slowing the process down at the beginning, really making sure that you have knowledge of the different methods that you can use to try and work through the terms you need to decide for your divorce, and then also making sure you have the right people on your team. So making sure you have an attorney who's working in your best interest, working in your family's best interest. If you have children involved, really understanding the impact that this, not just divorce or separation in itself has on the family, but what the actual process of going through a divorce can have on your family, because it's stressful. It can be time consuming. It can be expensive. And so really making sure that you're working with the right people who can help you navigate this. And, part of that is trusting your gut. Part of that is talking to multiple people before you decide to hire the one that makes the most sense for you. And not just, going with the first person who tells you they're going to get it done quickly and they're going to get you everything you want. It's probably not going to happen in that way. So really exploring what all the options are out there and making sure you have a good group of people supporting you.
Okay, that's great to know. And actually, you segued kind of into my next question, which is going to be, when you are going through divorce, what do you recommend as for who to have on that divorce team? Because it's not quite often just the attorney, there's other professionals involved as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people don't realize too, when they're working with an attorney or when they're first starting the divorce process, is as an attorney, I am trained in the legal aspects of divorce. I'm trained to understand the law and the impact. I'm not an expert in taxes. I'm not an expert in finances necessarily. I might have, more knowledge than the average person just because of what I do for a living. But, and I'm also not a psychologist or therapist or, all these things that kind of seem to come with the job. But that's one thing that we try to tell clients and let them know, like, you're going to be paying me a lot of money to counsel you when I'm not qualified to, to give you therapy, or I'm not qualified to, give you tax advice. And so, knowing that there are many different facets to your case that can kind of go beyond just working with an attorney. And I think a good attorney will help you understand that. And there's going to feel probably like you're paying a lot of different people, or there's a lot of different people involved in your case. And that could be true, but the key is to make sure that you're getting the right advice from the right people. And often that can help your case be more efficient with your finances, and making sure that you're, paying somebody who's an expert in that field, like a financial advisor, for their 1 hour of time, rather than paying, like an attorney to spend 3 hours trying to figure out the answer to the question you have, because they have to go, research it or talk to a bunch of different people. Mm-hmm. So the different professionals that you might have involved on your case could be like a CPA or a tax professional. There could be a financial advisor. There could be a retirement account specialist. Mm-hmm. There could be a we call them child specialists. Usually they're child therapists or people who have like a child development background. That can help you make the best decisions for your children in terms of what type of parenting plan or schedule you come up with. You could have your own personal therapists. We also have people, we call them divorce coaches, and they're usually people that have a therapist background who specifically work with people going through divorce. So they're knowledgeable and understanding of, the types of unique issues that you could be facing during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Lending professionals. Forgot about that one. No, that is a very key piece, dealing with the house, having a good lending professional and a real estate expert on your team if you need to make decisions regarding your house. So you might have some of these, you might have all of them, you might have one of them, but just knowing that if you're meeting with an attorney and they're advising you of all of these different areas that are specific to your situation, it's probably a good idea to consult with those professionals recommended, just so you can have a full understanding of what's going on in order to make the decisions you need to make.
That is a great answer, because I think many times people just think in a divorce, I'm just going to have an attorney. And circling back to what you said before about people wanting things to go quickly. Well, I think sometimes if you don't get a lot of these folks involved, it can really make things go a lot slower, because like you said, that, if they're looking to you to be the expert in everything, it's going to slow everything down. So it could also be that the more experts you have, the faster this could go too.
That is so true. And the number of times that, somebody has come into the case who's an expert and they just give their initial, I don't want to say their initial take on everything, but they just give their feedback, and the amount of time that can save, it might be something that the attorneys or the clients have been struggling with for a while to figure out what to do. It can help the case move along, definitely. And I wanted to add to that too, because, coming into divorce, I would say most of the time, if not all the time, there's a lot of pain involved. There's a lot of sadness or heartache or frustration. And sometimes there's this expectation that using the legal process is going to help alleviate some of that pain, or it's going to help alleviate your grief, and you're going to be able to, show them, or you're going to be able to get them or take them to court, or, all these things that you hear. And that never works. That's never yeah. And so, what was I going to say about that? Oh, so we talked about using, divorce coaches, or, getting connected with people who can help just sort of manage some of the emotion that's coming up for each person individually, or the kind of the combined emotion on the case can be crucial, because often, I will say, it's the emotional impact of divorce that really slows things down, or really drives people to want to fight it out in court, even though that never resolves anything. And it can, make this process take so much longer, because you're using the wrong tool to address the underlying issue, which is, you could be dealing with, it's the death of your marriage. And so, everything that comes with that, using the legal process, not the answer to dealing with that pain.
Mm-hmm. So here's a different question for you. So in your practice, do you have one really memorable case that you've worked on? And if so, what really impacted you the most about that case?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I said before, I've been doing this for about 15 years, and I've done all different variations of family law. So, mostly what we do now is mediation. and collaborative divorce. And both of those are tools to move through divorce outside of going to court. So we don't rely on a judge making decisions. We build a team to help us make the decisions possible. And also it's a way to help protect the family, because the children, especially, who are impacted the most by going through divorce. So, but I've also spent time doing litigation, which is representing clients in court, and kind of, what you see when you think of divorce or see it depicted on television, or, hear horror stories from friends. It's often, people going through litigation. And so I was thinking of kind of the case that I come back to a lot over this time is when I was sort of a younger attorney. I was probably in the first few years of my practice, and I had this case where I was representing the husband in a divorce, and wife was represented by an attorney. And we went to this thing called a settlement conference, where the two attorneys, basically try and negotiate a settlement. And if you reach a settlement, and this is pretty far along in the process, this is kind of like the last thing you do before you go to a trial. And so I've been with this case for a long time, and I can't remember exactly what the issue was that they were not agreeing to, but I was negotiating with this other attorney. We were at the courthouse. We were there for hours going back and forth, and we finally reached a settlement, and it was favorable to my client. It was what my client was hoping for. And so I was relieved, this was a good result for my client. And I was kind of excited being a younger attorney, just like, oh yes, I got a win. But as we say, there are no wins in family law. It's anyway. So after you reach a settlement in that type of situation, you then have to go put it on the record. So you have to tell it to the judge, and then the judge essentially says, okay, and, signs the order, the terms, or kind of, preserves whatever the agreement is, and that's essentially binding to them. So we went and we read the agreement onto the record, and the attorneys were standing up, and I'm still feeling like, oh, this was a good result today. And all of a sudden I hear the wife just start sobbing, and she's crying, and she's kind of she's very loudly sobbing. And I turn around to kind of make sure she's okay. And my client, the husband, immediately kind of gets up, and he goes over and he's comforting her, and he's crying. And we wrap up what we're doing in the courthouse, and they take a moment, and I'm waiting for my client to walk out of the courthouse. And we walk out, and it's just solemn and sadness. And I essentially am like, well, we'll connect later, because now's not the time to really talk about anything. And that left such a huge impact on me, because especially as a younger attorney, thinking like, oh, I was going to get a win. Won't my client be so happy that he got a win? And instead, he was sad. He was devastated. He was crying, and then of course, even though they came to an agreement, the way that we had done it in the courtroom, with kind of fighting back and forth, and nobody was happy that day. And I thought, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this, that's not so harsh and not so heavy on the clients, and with no room for kind of the basic tenderness that came from that moment too. And so anyway, that always sticks with me as sort of a case that pushed me in the direction of wanting to pursue mediation, and wanting to pursue collaborative divorce, and wanting to do things that were able to help my clients. And we always say in a more holistic way, because there were tools that were available to us as attorneys we weren't using at the time when I was doing litigation, or a lot of courtroom, kind of fight it out type stuff. And so that set me on my path to what I'm doing now. And yeah, that was a big one for me.
Oh my gosh, that definitely sounds like it had a major impact on you to, turn you more toward the collaborative side or mediation, which I do agree with you is a little more gentle upon the people that are going through divorce, because divorce is emotionally, very difficult, so that I'm sorry at the impact, but it's a really great example of why litigation is not the end all be all that many folks think it is in divorce.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's not the only option too.
Mhm.
And I think, even in mediation, I mean, I don't want to paint too bright of a picture like, oh, do something else and you'll have such a happier time of it. It's still going to be sad and it's still going to be hard, but it's at least in a setting that, like you said, has a much gentler approach, or it can help kind of hold the family a little bit more as they go through this really devastating time in their life. Versus treating it like a courtroom battle that needs to be won. And like I said before, there's no winning. It's not that type of a legal situation.
Yeah, I don't think anyone truly wins in a divorce. I think it's just how it all works out.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing your really valuable time with me today. And I really respect you as an outstanding family law professional in the Vancouver, Portland area. And I just have a couple last questions for you. So if someone wanted to benefit from your expertise, where would they go to learn more about you?
Oh, well, they would go to our website. It's kmmediation.com. From there, you can give us a call. You can schedule a consult online. If you don't see a time that works for you, always give our office a call, because our admin does a great job of finding time that's not listed online. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, our website.
Okay, great.
Social media too. So Instagram, Facebook.
Now Threads.
Yeah.
And do you have one final thought that you would like to leave with today?
If you're going through a divorce, and especially if you're at the beginning, that this can be the hardest point in the whole process, and know that there's a lot of professionals out there that are able to help you get through this process in a way that you probably could not even imagine. And know that, the more support you have for yourself now, the better it's going to be in the long run when all of this is over.
Oh, that is such sage advice. I really think that's excellent. Thank you so much, Katie, for your time today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Theresa.